Alright. Look, I'll admit, I'm running out of ideas and I'm a little washed up, so I'm gonna use this magic off-brand 8-ball to decide the rest of my life. Please, magic 8-ball, tell me, am I gonna be rich and famous? Chances aren't good. What is up, guys? So today we are back with another deep dive, diving deeper into the Rainbow Cup. Yes, I'm still there. I'm still here. So today we're actually going to be looking at Mantine, and Mantine is a really interesting Pokemon, to say the least, because he's just cool. So Mantine is a water and flying type Pokemon, maxing out at level 40 with 15s across the board at only 2108, which is fairly good. So with a 0-1 attack, 15 defense, and 14 stamina at level 27.5, you can hit a 1500 exactly. Now, of course, according to my spreadsheet and all the numbers that I have ran, Mantine should rank around 7th in bulk and 4th in stat product, which is really nice. And of course, that all does come from his base stats here: an attack of 148, a whopping 226 on defense, and a 163 on stamina. Pretty freaking great stat spread there. I'm really liking the stat. Moving on into our moves, we do have a couple of different iterations of some movesets here that we can kind of take a look at for Mantine, and today I'm actually going to focus on two specific movesets. So our first moveset is actually going to be utilizing Bubble, Ice Beam, and Aerial Ace, while our second moveset is going to be Wing Attack, Water Pulse, and Aerial Ace. So let's go over these moves so we can kind of get into that. Bubble is our first fast move here. 3.67 energy per turn and a 2.67 damage per turn. After you do factor in stab, it does bump up to this 3.2, which is fairly nice. Wing attack here, 3.5 energy per turn, 2.5 damage per turn. After stab, it does get bumped up to a whopping 3 damage per turn. And then Bullet Seed. Yeah, so 3.67 energy per turn, which is actually not too shabby, for a measly 1.67 damage per turn, which is pretty shabby. So considering we don't even get a stat bonus off of it, it's really kind of like the most underperformed move. I do kind of see a merit, like, in some way, like maybe you were gonna build this Mantine to be like a completely off meta, like trying to trick somebody and say, hey, my Mantine's good against the water type. But really, like, it's not really gonna be hitting on a whole lot. I don't suggest using Bullet Seed. Our charge moves here, we do have Water Pulse, costing 60 for 70 damage at a 1.17 damage per energy ratio. After you do factor in stab, it does get bumped up to an 84 on the damage for a 1.4 on the damage per energy ratio, so not too shabby. Ice Beam here, 55 energy for 90 damage at a 1.64. Considering we do not carry an ice typing, we do not get stabbed there. And then Aerial Ace here, for 45 energy, you get 55 damage at a 1.22 damage per energy ratio. After stab, it does get bumped up to 66 on the damage for a 1.46, making it our most efficient stab move. So the reason that I actually have two different movesets picked out for Mantine here is because there's a moveset that makes some sense, and then there's kind of like a gimmick that you can do with Mantine. So the first moveset that we're going to look at is actually Bubble, Ice Beam, and Aerial Ace. With this moveset, you do kind of have more of a specialist type role. With utilizing Bubble as a fast move, it does kind of set you up to be more of a specialist towards the fire types. You then have Ice Beam to kind of help cover some of the issues with the grass, and then you also have Aerial Ace for the grass as well, but also a pretty good neutral move in the cup. So that's kind of one iteration that you can do. So our second moveset is actually going to be Wing Attack, Water Pulse, and Aerial Ace. So Wing Attack is going to open us up to be a pretty good generalist off the bat. It's going to help with a lot of the grass type matchups, while Water Pulse is really going to start to help in that fire type matchup, and then Aerial Ace to just have our quick charge move. It is our fastest charging charge move here. That's a weird thing to say, but it is our fastest move, which kind of keeps the speed on our Mantine, which really does help. break some shields whenever we don't necessarily have anything super effective. At least we can hit things for neutral damage with Aerial Ace really quickly. So let's actually go over some shield scenarios with these two movesets to try to figure out how they do. So up here on the left we do have our wing attack, and up on the right we do have our bubble. So in our first shield scenario we do have a 0 versus 0 where it's I don't have any shields, my opponent doesn't have any shields. Basically like a closing type situation, if you will. So our wing attack, water pulse, and aerial ace does win 56.2% of those matchups. Pretty nice. Now our bubble, ice beam, aerial ace actually only wins 43.5%. So we gotta give this one to our wing attack. Our next shield scenario is this 2 versus 0 where I have 2 shields, my opponent doesn't have any shields. We actually end up winning 93.5% with our wing attack, water pulse, aerial ace, while if we're carrying bubble we actually end up winning 95.7%. So definitely got to give it to our bubble there. Now with this shield scenario, we're not actually too concerned about the ones that we win against. If I have complete shield advantage, I want to know which Pokemon still end up beating us no matter what. And in both of these scenarios, not too surprising, Lantern is actually the one Pokemon that can really just break through us. For what it's worth, Chinchou also falls in there, but I figure people aren't going to bring Chinchou, they're just going to bring Lantern. So Lantern is actually the one Pokemon that can actually just tear through us in both of those movesets, even though we have 2 full shields and they don't have any. Our next shield scenario is this 0 versus 2, which is where I don't have any shields, but my opponent actually has 2 shields. We actually end up winning 9.8% with the wing attack and 12% with the bubble. Holy cow. So with that moveset, we're actually going to be concerned about the ones that we are winning up against here. If my opponent has complete shield advantage, I'd love to know which Pokemon I still can end up taking out. And these vary depending on your moveset here. So if we're running wing attack, the bug types are the ones that are going to end up having a lot of trouble with us here. But if we're running bubble, to no one's surprise, it's going to be the fire types that end up having a lot of trouble. So depending on which moveset you have, kind of depends on what you should be focusing your attention on here. Our last shield scenario is the 2 versus 2, which is where I have both shields, my opponent has both shields. Kind of like a mock-up opening type situation, if you will. So with our wing attack here, 52.2%. And if we have bubble, it's actually a 47.8%. So it does go to the wing attack with the 2v2. And what does this kind of tell us here? Well, what this tells me is that a 56.2 versus a 52.2 means that we do just barely favor closing if we have wing attack. But a 43.5 versus a 47.8 means that we actually prefer opening if we have bubble, which is kind of interesting. So for the purposes of our matches and countering for the rest of this video, I actually do go with wing attack, water pulse, and aerial ace because I do have a gimmick that I want to try to illustrate for you guys. So the next thing that we're going to be doing here is actually going over our matches here. So in all of our deep dives, I end up putting the subject Pokemon Mantine today up against the top 10 bulkiest Pokemon in the cup just to kind of see how they do. And Mantine actually has a pretty good spread here. So to look at this, we're actually going to go over to pvpoke.com. We're going to build our Mantine, wing attack, water pulse, aerial ace, just like we talked about. We're going to have 1 shield for me and 1 shield for my opponent. I do have a custom group set up. If you want to look through these, you can kind of see these really fast. Basically, there are multiple iterations of Suicune to try to figure out extrasensory versus Snarl, and then the top like 4 movesets for hidden power based on PvPoke's rankings, and then we just have the other 9 top bulkiest Pokemon listed here. So once we hit battle here, you can see we have 10 wins, 5 losses, which is weird in a top 10 scenario, but hey, let's look at this. So we do have Fortress actually rounding out as our easiest matchup, Shuckle coming in second, then we have a Suicune with hidden power ground, a Jumpluff, and then we have Suicune with water, Suicune with bug, then Suicune with extrasensory, Suicune with snarl, Suicune with grass. None of the Suicunes actually can beat us in this scenario, which is fairly decent. That's not happened, I don't think, so far this month. But so Suicune, Jumpluff, Shuckle, Fortress, and then we do have this Lapras here, just barely beating the Lapras with our Mantine there, and then we start to get into our losses. So Azumarill, Mantine itself, there is, yes, a build that you can do to beat you know, yourself. If you want to run Ice Beam, it's better in the mirror than if you run Water Pulse, but it's just kind of which way you want to take it. Dugong, Tentacle, and Lantern all giving us the most trouble there. So top 10 bulkiest, I think that's pretty solid. Next, we're going to move over to our countering section. So in this section, we actually talk about these green typings here are the ones that we want to focus our attention on, while the red ones are the ones that we basically want to bring to the table if we're worried about combating a actual Mantine in a tournament. So this time we're going to go into PV Poke. We're just going to select the entire Rainbow Cup, make sure it stays on one shield and one shield. We do have Wing Attack, Water Pulse, and Aerial Ace here. And let's hit it. As you can see, wins in the 1v1 shield scenario are up to 63% with this moveset. So even topping out our 2 shield scenarios that we actually won in that head-to-head there. So let's actually look at these. Our first typing that we're going to go over is the bug typing. And to no one's surprise, with flying type damage being such a ridiculous move up against the bug types here, not a single bug can actually get underneath our skin. Next we have the fire typing, and as you can see, the fire types are not too shabby. We do have a tie up against Arcanine, and then PV Poke has a Ho-Oh here, but the Ho-Oh is using Hidden Power Electric. Plus, I'm pretty sure we've talked about Ho-Oh before and the fact that it's not likely at all that you're going to see one in a tournament setting. So that's why I do have the star here, just kind of like in quotes, like, yeah, we have all of them, except there's a tie up against Arcanine, okay? Next we have the grass typing, and we have all of them yet again. So every single grass type actually ends up falling to our Mantine, which is crazy. So think about this. Think Wing Attack, Water Pulse, Aerial Ace. Beats 3 full typings in a 1v1 shield scenario. Holy cow, that's huge. Now we have the electric types, which are pretty bad here. Magneton, Electabuzz, Raichu, Chinchou, Magnemite, Jolteon, you know, all these are just really, really horrible matchups here. Last but not least, we do have the water typing, and this one's kind of weird. So we kind of start to win a lot of these matchups just based on a lot of neutral damage that we're able to output, while they're not hitting quite as much neutral damage because we are so much bulkier than them. We are going to be able to tank a few more hits than they are. So once we get through that, we start to see a few losses here. Kingdra, Golduck, Ammonite, they're starting to get a big one there. Ammonite and Amistar do appear as losses. We do still have that weakness to a rock type move, so it does kind of make a big deal. And then you can kind of see Kabutops is there. Chinchou, Lantern, of course, rounding out the bottom. Starmie, Suicune, yeah, I'm sure both of those are using Hidden Power. Corsola's probably utilizing Rock-type moves. Then we have Lapras, Dugong, Tentacruel, Quagsire, Mantine, Slowpoke. As you can see, it's just kind of pretty rough in the Water-type area. Now, as far as the gimmick for Mantine, so here's my thing. I touched on this in the Water-type video, which, by the way, if you haven't seen it, you can go over there and I guess hear this exact argument again. But, so if you think about Mantine and Quagsire. So Quagsire utilizing Mud Shot, Stone Edge, and whatever third move that you really want to use. It doesn't change the scenario too much here. Having that move set on Quagsire and then having Mantine with Wing Attack, Water Pulse, and Aerial Ace, you're actually able to cover each other really, really nicely. So Quagsire is going to have that huge weakness to grass, while as you can see, we don't have a problem with grass whatsoever. And then Quagsire is going to help cover the electric types, while we have a huge problem with electric types. So both of these Pokemon really do have a nice synergy while covering each other. I really do think that's an amazing strategy to just open up with in a lot of matches. If people don't know that these two Pokemon can do that, they're really going to be caught off guard. Now, to say that, you do have to think of the other side of the coin, where if people know this strategy, it's pretty easily countered, because if they can force you to switch on one, then they can just switch in their counter for the other. Because we do have a super duper weakness to electric here and a super duper weakness to grass on Quagsire, if they can call the bluff or call the strat, then they can just kind of switch in their counter for both. Either way, I think it's a pretty solid strat. I really like the idea of it. I think that it's really interesting. So definitely give that a thought. Whether you want to run, you know, whatever moveset on Quagsire or whatever moveset on, you know, Mantine. Mantine in itself is still really, really good. Beating 3 full typings is nothing to laugh about. That's big. Now granted, it doesn't beat the biggest type, it does beat 3 typings though. Having 3 out of the 5 typings covered is pretty amazing. So that is actually going to be it for Mantine today, guys. Thank you so much for hanging out. Thank you so much for watching. Always remember that if you have a deep dive idea, you can toss it down in those comments. I'll put it on the spreadsheet, and once it gets voted 1,000,000 times or whatever, once it becomes the highest voted Pokemon, I just do it. I just do. So that is actually it for today, guys. Thank you so much for hanging out. Thank you so much for watching. Always remember that if you like to like videos, you can do that, but if you don't, you can be that guy. Otherwise, let me know what you have to say down in the comments below, and until our next video, I will catch you then.